Hi, I'm Tina. I am the Chief Number Cruncher of Accounting Pros, and I'm excited to talk to you today about the COVID-19 disaster loans, the economic injury disaster loans, now with a bonus $10,000 grant. So this loan is very similar to the original EIDL loan that I had described in another video. You'll still be able to get up to $2 million. The rate will still be at 3.75%. As long as you're a for-profit business. It's lower if you're nonprofit. And the term is 30 years. So these are the maximum, $2 million. You might not get that, that much money. It can be used for things like fixed debts and payroll and accounts payable and operating expenses. So the SBA lender, once you put your application in, will make that decision for you. So you don't get to say, I want $2 million, even though we probably all want it. And the term is up to 30 years. And again, that's really going to be based on your ability to pay and how much you actually need. In addition, it's the same thing with the old EIDL loans. There's no payments for the first 12 months. They're going to be deferred. There's still no cost to apply. There's no obligation to actually take the money or accept the loan. So you get to decide whether or not you need this. And then you also get to have the option to take a $10,000 grant, which will be transferred to you within 3 days of your application being approved, as far as I know. And you can also decide not to take that grant. So that's going to be a you decision, not a me decision. And the loan amounts are really going to be based on, what your operating costs are. And typically disaster loans or EIDL loans are going to be monthly operating costs times 6 months to get your estimated loan amount. But again, the SBA person that you're working with is going to decide what you are qualified for. So don't expect to get the 6 months, but you might get it. So, shoot for the stars. And if you're under 500 employees, you're probably eligible. And also people who are sole proprietors or independent contractors, you would also be allowed to take money under the EIDL program through the CARES Act. And if you're not in a prohibited business, then you should also be eligible. And I'll show you what those prohibited businesses are when we get into the loan application. But it's going to be pretty much the same stuff that you saw on the original video that I made. Money from gambling, federally illegal businesses, things like that. You're probably not going to be able to get this loan, and you really do need to be honest about whether you are in that business, because it's never good to lie to the federal government. And there's going to be some rules that are waived in this case. So you do not need to make a personal guarantee according to this bill. If you borrow under $200,000, you only need to be in business as of January 31st, 2020. And you don't need to be able to get credit elsewhere. So that's really great, because that used to be a big problem with people, is you had to be you couldn't get credit elsewhere in order to get these types of loans. If you had credit, you would be declined. You're not going to be declined in this case. And additionally, the SBA is able to approve loans based on the credit score of the applicant, and they are not required to get tax returns or tax transcripts either, which is great. And they can also use alternative appropriate methods to determine an applicant's ability to repay. So what that really says is the SBA gets to decide, and they don't have to follow the normal rule book that they have to follow. So when you go to covid19relief.sba.gov, you're first going to go and see the disclosures, and the disclosures are going to be really fast. So are you a small business? So do you have fewer than 500 employees? There's a few other businesses that are allowed, so just pick the one that most closely matches you. I have fewer than 500 employees, so I would choose this, the first one here. I'm also going to tell them that I am not engaged in illegal activity, as defined by federal guidelines. The SBA it's a federal program, so if you are in a business that is federally illegal, then you would not be qualified for this. Federally illegal means cannabis, which is legal on the state level, but is not legal on the federal level. So I am not engaged in that. I also I'm not delinquent on child support. I'm not an agricultural enterprise. I do not present live performances of a prurient sexual nature, so I don't do that. I don't get more than 1/3 of my gross revenue from gambling. I'm not a lobbyist, and I'm not a state, local, or municipal government agency, and I'm not a member of Congress yet. And if you have questions while you're filling out this application, they have their contact information down below. You can call them at 800-659-2955. Or you can email the SBA at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. Okay, so everything here that has a little asterisk next to it, you'll need to fill in your information. So I'm just going to put a bunch of scribble in here because I've already filled out my loan, but I need to fill out like my legal name, my trade name. I have my EIN. or my social security number if I'm a sole prop. You have to decide the organization type, so your entity. So are you an LLC, a sole proprietor, a C Corp, an S Corp? And it's important to note that if you are an S Corp, you already are an LLC, but you're electing to be taxed as an S Corp. So in my case, I'm an S Corp, I would choose this rather than LLC. General partnership, limited partnership, all these sorts of things. Whatever you are, just choose the right one. And am I a nonprofit? In this case, I am not. If you are, you'll need to select that. Am I a franchise? I am not. Again, that's up to you. Your gross revenues prior to the disaster, it's going to be 12 months prior to the disaster. Your cost of goods sold is prior to the disaster as well for up to 1 year. And as you're walking through this form, you might notice that this is going to look really similar to the SB 5 loan application that you might have filled out previously in the original EIDL program. And this section is probably going to look like the P019 form that you filled out previously. So if you have copies of those forms already, like PDFs that you had planned on sending in, go ahead and just look at those forms. You don't have to do a lot of research. You probably already have this on file. If you're a rental property, what your lost rents are, and then these are all for nonprofits, so I don't need to be filling this out, but if you're a nonprofit, please make sure you're completing that. And if you have any other compensation as a result of the disaster, please put that information in there. So I do not have any compensation. I left all those things blank. And as you see, they have no asterisk, so you don't have to fill them out at all. The primary business address, make sure it's where the business is located. Your city, let's just do Denver. Your state, and your county, I'm in Denver County. And your zip, I'm 80202. Your business phone, your alternative business phone, you can leave that blank if you want. That's just so they can be in touch with you. Your business email address, now everybody's going to be emailing me. The date that the business was established, let's just go back. The current ownership, so I've actually owned the business for the entirety of the time it's been around, so I'm going to just put the same date here. And the business activity, so you'll have to choose the business activity that most closely relates to your business. So if you are, let's just choose something. If you are an eating and drinking place, then it'll have in the drop down whether or not you're casual dining or fine dining, etc. I'll just go ahead and put fine dining because I love to eat. And the amount of employees I have, let's just say you've got 15 employees as of January 31st. And the reason that they have as of January 31st is that's when the covered period, when the disaster actually begins in the eyes of the SBA. Oh, let me go back and fill this out. I left that blank. All right, next. So first you'll need to check whether or not you are a business, if the business is owned by another business entity. In my case, the business is solely owned by me. So I'm going to put my name, Tina Garza. I'm not going to give you my cell phone number so I don't get weird phone calls at night. I'm the owner. I am 100%, owner. My email again, so you guys can be weird. Just kidding. My social security number, which I'm definitely not going to give you. My birth date, I'm definitely not going to give you that either. I want you to guess how old I am. And place of birth, let's just say in this case Mars. Am I a U.S. citizen? Yes, I am. And then my address, 555 Sesame Street, Denver, Colorado, 80202. If you have additional owners, you have the opportunity to add their information here, but if you don't, just move on. And then it's really fast after this. We've been in this loan application for like 2 minutes and we're almost done. So have you been convicted of a criminal offense? All this stuff was on the SB 5 form, so you should have already said no. Or if it's a yes, you probably have to add an explanation. Let's find out what happens. Oh, nothing actually pops up. So maybe you will get declined based on this. So just be honest here. Have you been convicted of an offense? Are you suspended or disbarred from federal contracting or receiving federal grants or loans? Are you subject to an indictment? All this other stuff. It's a yes or no. There's really no gray area. If someone helped you fill this form out, please put their information, and you do need to check whether or not they have the permission to talk to the SBA about you or about your loan. And this is the big box. So just make sure you're paying attention here. I would like to be considered for an advance of up to $10,000. So if that is true, then yes. If it is not, then don't click it. And these are the funds, whether or not you're going to get the grant or the loan, you need to put your bank information of where that money needs to go. And then down here, you're going to certify under the penalty of perjury that everything is true and correct. So I'm not going to click next all the way through because I don't want to give them fake information that will just jam up their system. But you saw how quick this loan application went. It was like 2 minutes. But I do want to cover a few extra key points that I've had a ton of questions on. So as I said before, you don't have to return the money to the government if you are denied for the EIDL loan. And this is actually written into the bill. So the bill says an applicant shall not be required to repay any amounts of an advance provided under the subsection, even if subsequently denied a loan. Sorry, that was a little bit of a tongue twister. So please, if you even feel like you might not get the loan and you need to get that money, put your loan application in. It doesn't hurt. And the bill also specifies how you're supposed to be spending that money. Of course, this is what's listed exactly as what the bill says. So if you need to pay for sick leave, if you need to pay payrolls, if you've had disruptions or slowdowns in your business, if you've had kinks in your supply chain and now you've got to go find a new supplier, which might be more expensive. If you have rent or mortgage, I mean, there's tons of people who have rent that's due like tomorrow. And if you need $10,000 to do that, put your application in now. And also, if you have obligations, they cannot be met because of revenue losses. So it's pretty broad. It's pretty much like, do you need money because COVID has affected your business? Yes, then this is how you can spend your money. And the other question I get a lot is, if I get a Paycheck Protection Program loan, and can I also get an economic injury disaster loan? And the answer is yes. And they actually specify some information about that in the bill. So I'll read that to you. So they say if an applicant that receives an advance under the subsection or is approved for PPP, so I'm paraphrasing that because they actually have like the name written out, the advance shall be reduced from the loan forgiveness amount of the loan for a loan of payroll costs. So when you get the Paycheck Protection Program loan, I have a whole video about what's included there, but you'll be able to get potentially 8 weeks of approved expenses forgiven. And that's things like your payroll costs, so your gross pay, your state and local taxes, health insurance. That's what you're actually going to get qualified on. But in addition to that, you can also get forgiven for rent payments and mortgage interest and other debt obligation interest. So, you have a lot of money that can potentially be, knocked off of the top of your loan. But if you've taken a $10,000 grant for the same purpose, they're just going to say, all right, well, we've already just prepaid that for you. So you're going to get $10,000 less than what, off your loan than you expected. So yes, you can have an EIDL. Yes, you can have a PPP. They're just going to take that amount over, out of your loan forgiveness. And really, you can't get qualified for the same purposes. So if you plan on getting a PPP, put that money in a separate bank account. Tie your payroll and your utilities and your mortgage and everything that you can get, forgiven for. Just have it come out of that account. The EIDL money, put it in a different account, put it in a different bank account, and then pay off the accounts payable, or, if you have to pay suppliers more or whatever, put that in a different account so you're not commingling things. And there's not a question about whether or not you can get forgiven later. And this is directly from the horse's mouth. If you have already applied for an SBA loan, the former EIDL program, then you do need to go out and fill out the new streamlined application. It's not going to impact or slow or anything else. It's going to be you'll be in the same place online. I'm assuming they're going to tie it to your EIN, which is what you provided previously. But you do need to go through the new streamlined program to get the $10,000. So you're not out of luck if you've already applied previously, before the CARES Act went into place. You can get it. Just make sure you're going to the SBA. And you'll go to covid19relief.sba.gov. The number, if you need to call them again, is 800-659-2955. Or you can email them at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. But I emailed them and I've heard nothing, so you might be better just sitting on hold for a while. So thanks again. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm still answering questions via email. If you want to email me at christina@accountingpros.com, all my contact information I'll put in the info down below. You can also hit me up on Twitter, or send me some smoke signals or some snail mail or whatever. But I'm happy to help in any way I can.